Yeah, unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Do you think this is your time?
Well, it's time! It's time! Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change!
See, this is power. This voice, this is power. In anybody else's hands, this is a microphone. In my hands, it's a pipe.
Do you think this is your time?
When you look at Mr. Perfect, what you see is what you get. And what you're getting is absolutely perfect.
What I'd like to have right now is for all you fat, ugly, inner city sweat hogs, keep the noise down while I take my robe off and show the ladies what a real sexy man looks like. Hit the music.
Tell me, you stupid idiot.
Hey, yo!
I'm gonna tell y'all with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
From Chicago, Illinois.
Look in my eyes, what do you see? The cult of personality.
Welcome everybody to the first ever episode of Pro Wrestling Opinions. I am your host, Nate Jett, and I'm normally joined here by my brother Braxton, but he is busy this week, so I will be tackling our first ever episode by myself. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Raw, SmackDown, we're going to be talking about No Mercy, and I'm going to be giving my predictions and who I think is going to win. As well, we're going to be talking about news and rumors. So, with that being said, let's start off with some Raw. Okay, so Raw opens up with Reigns, and of course, it's always followed by a chorus of boos. Graves says that you need to listen to this crowd. Listen to this ovation. And all I could do is laugh to myself. Yeah, ovation of boos, Corey. Gosh, I love Corey Graves, but sometimes he says some pretty ridiculous things. And I know it's just Vince McMahon talking in his ear, but you know. So, you have Roman Reigns in the ring, and he says bloodline runs deep. But no other Uso has won the U.S. title before him. He's interrupted by Lana, and the fans are chanting, "Thank you, Lana," which I thought was hilarious. She said she's here to negotiate a rematch for Rusev, and says that Roman has no respect for family because he interrupted their wedding ceremony. She says to tells him to wipe that stupid smile off his face, you stupid boy. And he tells her to go back in the back and deliver Rusev his Bulgarian balls, which is probably one of the maybe 2 times that I laughed at something Roman Reigns said. She tells him to go to hell, and Rusev's music hit. They go back and forth, and they brawl for a few minutes, and then Rusev hits his Machka kick, which sends Roman over the barricade. And while he's recovering, Rusev and Lana leave with the U.S. title. But then, when Rusev turns around, he gets laid out with a Superman punch by Reigns, and Reigns yet again proves why he's the biggest heel in this industry by sucker punching like he always does. Reigns said he'll get his rematch, but it won't be a normal rematch. It'll be a Hell in a Cell. So, next up we have Perkins and Kendrick. And this match I thought was for the Cruiserweight title, but apparently it was just a non-title match. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have swore last week on Raw they advertised this for the belt. So, it opens up with a video package of both guys, and I guess a lot of wrestlers are giving Perkins heat backstage because he said that he was homeless, which a lot of wrestlers are homeless, but I'm sure it's not just him saying it. I know that they're feeding him lines, so if the wrestlers in the back should be mad at anyone, it should be creative and the ones in charge. So Perkins comes out, and the more I hear his theme music, the more I like it, because I am a big Mega Man fan, and this is pretty much Mega Man's theme song. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but the side curtain for the Cruiserweights, they have their own now, and it's anything to make it feel a little bit different. So the match is going back and forth. There was a spot where Perkins' hand was caught in the turnbuckle bar right behind the pad, and I thought that was so innovative for Brian Kendrick to do. And he just finds ways to do stuff to use his environment around him during a match, like he did with Kota Ibushi in their Cruiserweight Classic match when he gave him that neck breaker over the bar. He's doing something now with the hand in the bar, which I thought was very cool and was a good spot. So Kendrick ends up winning with what is called now the Captain's Hook. And yeah, so apparently he's going to be getting a rematch for the title now, which they haven't announced it, but I'm sure it's coming at Hell in the Cell, which would be very cool if it was in the Hell in the Cell, but we won't go that far. So next up, we have Rollins' interview with Cole. He says that Owens is the teacher's pet, which is basically what Rollins was for 2 years straight. Ironic, huh? He says how he feels about being replaced by Owens. Rollins says there's no replacing him. He says he sees things different now. He's going to tear the machine down one by one, starting with Owens. And he's going to cancel the Kevin Owens show. So next up, we have Strowman. Squash match against, I believe his name was Chase Silver. He looked a lot like Adam Cole. And it was funny because I thought to myself he looked like it. And then on Botchamania or Heelbook or some Facebook page, they actually posted something about how they spelled Adam Cole wrong, which I thought was funny. So Byron interviews his opponent, and Chase says he just moved out here from Idaho to Hollywood, where dreams come true, and last night he had a dream that he was going to beat Braun. And Byron goes, oh, okay. So Strowman wins with his running power slam, and afterwards Byron asks him what's next. Braun says he's a gift of destruction, and they are wasting his time with these weak fools week after week. And if Foley doesn't up his opponents, then there won't be a next week. I didn't really think about it at the time, but I seen something about a meme where they showed Goldberg and who's next and all that. I mean, I've been really kind of enjoying these Strowman squash matches. It went from me not giving a crap about Strowman to now I actually do enjoy it. I won't fast forward through his matches. He's not that exciting or anything, but he's a big guy and it's pretty impressive. So, moving on, we have Sasha and Bayley backstage. Bayley says Sasha and Charlotte's match tonight is Trish and Lita level, meaning that they're going to be the first women to main event a Raw show since Trish and Lita did back, I don't know when that was, 2000, 2001, around that area. Sasha said she feels like a little girl and that she can't wait to become a 2-time women's champion. She said Charlotte might be born in the system, but she's born to be champion. So we move on to the ring, and Kevin Owens and Jericho come out. As Jericho's walking down the ramp, he's pointing out fans, and he's writing them on the list. And Cole says, "Breathe it in, Byron." And Graves said, "It's drink it in, Cole, you stupid idiot." Just sometimes when Graves says stuff like that to Cole, it just reminds me how much I love listening to Corey Graves on the mic, except for when he says something stupid, like I said at the beginning of Raw. Owens said that he just watched Rollins' interview with Cole and said, "Michael Cole, you were terrible, by the way." Says Rollins is an idiot, or some would say stupid idiot, and he glances over at Jericho. Owens says now that one question is answered, another question is, why is Jericho standing next to him? And Jericho says, well, it's because we're best friends. Owens says, that's correct, but that's not why we're out here. He says he wants Jericho to be the ref at their next match. And Jericho says, that sounds like a good idea. And he has his own ref jersey in the back. But he has a different idea. He says after beating Enzo and Cass, they are the best tag team in the WWE, and that they should get a challenge, the New Day, for the tag titles. The fans started chanting yes, 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 and Jericho tells them to shut up. Owens says Cesaro and Sheamus are number one contenders, and Jericho says, yeah, but they're not best of friends. And Owens says, yeah, that's great, but he's busy right now being heavyweight champion. And Jericho said it's not like he's asking him for a title shot at Owens. And Owens kind of like stops, and he looks over at Jericho, and he goes, okay, let's do it. So the New Day come out. Kofi said, I know y'all ain't talking about friendship. They say you know who has the best friendship? And they go, who? Jericho said they just made the list. And while he's writing down the list, Owens corrects him and says that Kofi spelt with an I and not a Y. Big E said that Owens can join the Circle of Champs, but Jericho can't. Jericho said E just made the list. Owens said Woods is laughing, and now Jericho puts Woods on the list. Owens says 7 months ago they jumped the shark, and Woods says, whoa, you know we can't swim, which I thought was hilarious. And I don't know if they wrote it or if Vince McMahon wrote it, because he's very racist, and I don't know. But I thought it was funny, and I'd like to think that Xavier Woods was the one that came up with that line, because he's very talented. So Woods tells Owen and Jericho that since they're not dressed, they'll allow them to get ready and face them later on. So then we go backstage, and Sheamus and Cesaro pull up, and they get out of the car, and they're arguing about God knows what. And Sheamus said that he's going to go talk to Foley. Well, we're going back to the ring with Zayn versus Titus. Quick match, pretty boring. I skimmed through it. Zayn wins with a hell of a kick. Zayn wins with a hell of a kick. Not sure what they're doing with Zayn, but it's a lot more than what they're doing right now with Neville. And we'll get to Neville later on. So we go backstage, and Sheamus and Cesaro are arguing in the locker room. Sheamus said they're late because of Cesaro, and he responds, I'm Swiss, and we're never late. Foley is shown as the camera pans out. Foley says bonding is why they're put together. Cesaro said Sheamus was picking his nose, which was, of course, probably a Vince line. Foley said he put them together because he knew that they can change the tag team division. Well, speaking of that, next up, we have a vignette that's shown of Gallows and Anderson, and Graves says they continue to run roughshod through the tag team division. What? Roughshod? This team just got done being beaten like 3 to 5 times by the tag team champions, and are in no way seen as a threat for that division. I would like for them to be a threat, but they're obviously not. So next up, Gallows and Anderson come out, and they face Golden Truth. And I'm not a big fan of Golden Truth, but I did chuckle a little bit to myself when they had the sing-along words to their song, and Goldust's head is bouncing along with the words. I guess for 5-year-olds now, and I just would like to not see this team on my TV anymore. Didn't really care about the match. Club wins, or Gallows and Anderson win with the Magic Killer. Then we go backstage, and Kelso and Hyde approach Jericho. Jericho says they're going to make the list. Ink it in, man. Hyde takes the list from him, and he starts reading off a bunch of fake items on Jericho's list. Kelso said they're so close, they're brothers. Jericho said they're so close, they should be conjoined twins. Jericho said they better stay out of their business, or else they'll get... And he walks off camera, and then he pops up on the left side and points his finger at their face and says, it. So we go back to the ring, and Enzo and Cass are out there with the Susan G. Komen women. They're the winners of the Susan G. Komen contest, and Enzo says, what do we have here? A couple winners? Enzo said these women have already won their fight with breast cancer, and all the women are handed Raw Women's Champions. So, Next up, we have Jericho versus New Day. Hyde and Kelso are in commentary, and this match just reminded me how good of a wrestler Xavier Woods is, and I'm not really sure why he doesn't wrestle more. All three men are each talented, but Xavier Woods has a very unique skill set, and we don't get to see it enough, so it comes off very fresh every time that he does wrestle. So during the match, Rollins comes out and distracts Owens. He turns around and Woods hits him with an enziguri. Woods gets the tag and Big E comes in. Well, so does Jericho. Big E goes for the big splash, but Owens super kicks him. Jericho gets Woods in the walls of Jericho, but Rollins distracts him. And New Day hits their finisher, which I guess has a name now. I don't know when they came up with it, but it's called Midnight Hour, and they pick up the win off of it. While Owens is walking up the ramp, Rollins teases him that he's going to pick up Jericho and pedigree him, and he's talking trash to Owens while he's doing it. Well, Owens didn't do any type of save, so Rollins hits the pedigree on Jericho, and that ends that. Backstage, Tom Phillips is with Charlotte and Dana, and he asks Charlotte if she has any butterflies. Charlotte says the only reason why Sasha is in the main event is because of her, and says Sasha has butterflies because she's going to knock her off her pedestal that her fans have put her on. Said that after she makes Sasha tap, she won't make history, she'll be history. Next up, we have a video package of Rich Swann. Guy's very entertaining. He's going to be a future star, probably not only in the cruiserweights, but outside of it, similar to how Cedric Alexander is. And we'll talk about him later. Backstage, Stephanie confronts Rollins. She said he couldn't be out there, and he said she has no control over him anymore. She said for the first time in his career, he's alone, and he is replaceable. Rollins responds with, Triple H made the second worst decision by interfering in his match. And he asks her, you know what this first decision was? And she's like, what? He said, marrying you. He said if he doesn't get a match, he promises to burn Raw to the ground. He walks away and Stephanie is shown with a smirk on her face, looking off. Fade to black. So then we have Rich Swann versus Tony Nese. And don't forget, Total Bellas debuts on Wednesday. You stupid sluts. Backstage, a promo by Nese. And he says maybe he should learn how to twerk like Amber Rose. Or to make a name for himself like Rich Swann has. But he promises he won't ever be looked over again. During the match, Nese does a move. And he teases Swann by doing a fake dancing. I don't know. Like, clearly Nese is being set up to be the second heel besides Kendrick in the division. And the match ends with Tony Nese hitting I called it a sit-down pump handle slam driver. It's like a Michinoku driver, but he sits down. I don't know. It was very cool. And I think I've said this before to my friends, but I'm pretty sure Tony Nese is my favorite out of the cruiserweights. Him or Cedric Alexander. Tony Nese just has I don't know, he kind of reminds me of like a hybrid Neville and Daniel Bryan. And speaking of Neville, I don't know where this guy is, but he needs to be the face of this division. This is the perfect opportunity for them to put him in the spotlight and allow him to shine, because you don't need great promo work to make a name for yourself in this cruiserweight division. All you have to do is just be a fantastic wrestler, and Adrian Neville is nothing short of that. So we move on to Sheamus and Cesaro versus two jobbers, and I think their names were Raul White and Mark Clarity. And Sheamus and Cesaro keep tagging each other back and forth in the match. They're destroying the jobbers while arguing with each other. And towards the end of the match, Sheamus goes for the cloverleaf, and Cesaro jumps on his back and hits the other jobber with the DDT. And I thought that was just great. Cesaro is just, guy's got so many gifts and talents when it comes to being in ring. Well, the match ends with Sheamus with a bro kick, and both men take turns celebrating on the top rope. So, moving on. We have a video package of Sasha and Charlotte, which goes back all the way to, I believe their team name was the BFFs or something like that. And it was those two and, can't think of her name. I don't know. I can't remember her name. I'll think of it and come back to it, or maybe I won't remember it. Charlotte is backstage, and she runs into Bayley and calls her Dora the Explorer. She says she should grab a front seat row so she knows what it's like to be a main eventer. And she walks off. Dana walks up to her and pats her on the head and tells her, "Playtime is over, Bayley." Well, Dana goes to pat her on the head, and Bayley smacks her hand away. And she takes her and she throws her into one of those like lighting boxes. And obviously that just meant that Dana was not going to be interfering in the match, which probably should have been the first clue that the title would be changing hands. So, I don't know. So we go to the main event, which is Charlotte and Sasha for the Women's Championship. And the last time they fought at SummerSlam, there were so many botches. And it reminded me, or it made me remember, because towards the beginning of the match, Sasha had a botch where she jumped on her from the apron. Well, during the match, Charlotte pushes her off the top rope, and it looked like she landed weird on that top rope. Obviously, she's fine. It just looked like she landed a little weird. Charlotte lands this amazing backwards corkscrew moonsault, and it looked like she missed most of it, but it was so cool looking and so impressive that it didn't really even matter. So, Sasha, towards the end of the match, hits a bank statement. Charlotte rolls her over, just like she did when she won the title back. And Sasha this time rolls her back over and reapplies the hold. Sasha wins by submission, and you're seeing, as Raw fades to black, Charlotte's crying on the ramp as Sasha celebrates with the strap in the ring. It was a good Raw overall. I'd probably give it, we'll go a new grading system since the brand split. But I'll say this was probably, I would say it's probably like a B. Just a B. Nothing bad. Nothing like, there were some good segments, but overall, yeah, it was good.
Come on and fight back. No starting over again. We'll take it right back from the ones where again it's time to rise up, even though they left us for dead. This is our last stand.
Alright, moving on to SmackDown. It opens up with a montage promoting a face-to-face, two-face video for AJ Styles, John Cena, and Dean Ambrose. It opens up with a match between Kane and Bray Wyatt. And during the match, Orton is shown on the Titantron upside down, which was, I don't know, it was pretty ridiculous. He says he's going to turn his upside down world right side up. And while he's saying this, Kane sits up in the ring. Wyatt turns around and walks right into a chokeslam, but he breaks away from it and rolls to the outside. After he teases going back in the ring, he stops, turns around, and just leaves. And that'll continue later on. Backstage, Baron Corbin is asked about Swagger. He said if he's stupid enough to climb in the ring with the baddest man alive, and then as he's saying it, Swagger walks up. Baron steps up to his face and finishes saying where he stands. Swagger said, let's do some talking in the ring, and he will talk to Bryan about a match. So then we go to another part of backstage, and Bray Wyatt is walking around and says Orton's time has come. So then we go back to the ring, and we have a match between Alexa Bliss and Nikki Bella, with Carmella on commentary. While Nikki's outside with Alexa, she throws Alexa into Carmella, which Carmella didn't take nicely. And Carmella calls her a thirsty Kardashian wannabe. Carmella then, after getting hit by Alexa Bliss's body, jumps Nikki, and Bliss helps her in the attack. Then Becky Lynch's music hits and evens the numbers. This match, of course, becomes a tag team match. And JBL even makes a joke about Bryan doing his best Teddy Long impression, which shouldn't really even be a compliment, nor should it even be considered funny, because I don't know about anybody else, but I wasn't a big fan of Teddy Long being in charge. So we have Nikki and Nikki's belly. No, we have Nikki and Becky versus Alexa and Carmella. And I love how SmackDown does a lot more with their women than Raw does. Raw definitely has the more talented women as the top 3, but when you look at SmackDown's women, you have 6 women that, I mean, I guess really only 4 of them are involved in a feud, but still, it's just impressive in general that this coming Sunday at No Mercy, we're going to have 2 women's matches. So the match ends with Nikki chasing after Carmella up the ramp and Alexa hitting the Twisted Bliss on Becky for the win, which of course means that Alexa will be eating the pinfall come this Sunday. So we're backstage yet again with Bray, and he's walking through darkness and cloudiness, and he looks over, and in the smoky light he sees a rocking chair. And he asks Randy if that's all he's got. Is that all you got, Randy? Then Randy closes the sliding door and says the hunter has become the hunted. And he's apparently in some of these, this little storage box crate. Orton then says, "Dear Lord, have mercy." Or not. And obviously it's because of the No Mercy pay-per-view. You get it? Haha. Good one, WWE. So footage from a camera that is inside of this crate shows Bray banging on the walls. Because before Orton could have finished this little trap that he had for Bray, he of course had to install security cameras. So we go to commercial, and we come back, and Daniel Bryan's walking down to the ring with the Susan G. Komen women. And judging with how Raw went, obviously these women are out here to be given a Raw title, a SmackDown women's title. And after he introduces the women, his music starts playing, which was obviously a botch. And he says, "Hold on here, I'm the GM, and I'll tell you when I'm done." He then all hands the women titles, and everyone does the yes chant, fade to black. So we come back, and it's the Vaudevillains and Hype Bros in a match together, which, speaking of Neville earlier, where have these 2 teams been? I'm not so much of a Hype Bros fan. I love Zack Ryder, but just them together, I'd rather see Zack Ryder solo. But it's fine. We need more tag teams. But the Vaudevillains, such a talented team in NXT, and now they've pretty much gone nowhere since being in the main roster. But I was going to ask where they were, but nope, here they are, wrestling. And you would think with a depleted roster, these guys would be on every week, or at least a segment or a squash match or something. So in the middle of the match, Ascension come out. Well, it probably wasn't even in the middle. It was probably like the first minute. The Ascension come out to the ramp. And I heard another podcast talk about how the new face paint on Ascension looks like it might be like male bodily fluid, if you know what I'm saying. And I can't stop thinking about it whenever I see it every time. It just makes me chuckle. So the Hype Bros win with a Hype Rider. And yeah, I just feel really bad for the Vaudevillains. Such a talented tag team. And they're pretty much nobodies. So then we get a little segment where it talks about Royal Rumble being back in San Antonio for the first time since I believe it was 97 or 98, I think it was, that they were there. Yeah, I could be wrong. It might be like 96. Somewhere around, though. And I was definitely a little upset because I kept hearing rumors of it being in Los Angeles, and me living in San Diego, it's right in my backyard. I've never gone to a Royal Rumble before. It's my favorite event. Even though most of the outcomes outside of Triple H in like the last 7 years have been pretty terrible. Yeah, I just love it either way. So, we go back to Miz TV, and they tease that it's going to be a Dolphumentary. Well, Miz comes out and he introduces Dolph and said that this may be his last time on SmackDown. Miz said tonight it's not about him, it's about Dolph. And he said it'll be his title versus Dolph's career come this Sunday at No Mercy. A video package on Dolph is shown, and it looked just like a WWE 24, and I mean, obviously it ended up being a spoof of it, called WWE 24 Successive Failure. And WWE is just doing such a great job right now, I just have to say, on their mid-card title feuds. Even though I'm not a Roman Reigns fan, his feud between him and Rusev is interesting. And the Dolph and Miz stuff is gold. Miz and Dolph have just been so great on the mic for the past, it's probably been about a month since Miz cut that promo on Talking Smack. But yeah, they've both been gold. So we go back to it, and Dolph says he can't walk away because of moments like the night after WrestleMania when he cashed in and won the title. He said he knows all good things must come to an end, but he's not done yet. Miz says, yes, yes you are. He said his career will end because of him, but don't worry, I have something that'll raise your spirits. Well, then the Spirit Squad music hits, and I know one of the guys' name was like Kenny. I think the other guy might have been like Mickey. I don't know. We'll just call him that. They do a pretty funny cheer of Dolph's name, and afterwards, Dolph starts arguing with The Miz. The Spirit Squad attack him, and they do that lift-up move where they throw him up in the air and hit him, their finisher. Well, Dolph ends up getting up while they're celebrating and hits them both with a super kick. Miz comes back down to the ring, and Dolph goes to super kick him, but Miz slides out of the ring. And, yeah, I mean, I'll get more on that later for the No Mercy preview and predictions, but this is gonna be a tough one to call because I've heard a lot of stuff about Dolph maybe taking time off or going away. There's a possibility he can go to Raw. I keep hearing them say on commentary about how this could be his last time on SmackDown, wrestling a SmackDown match, wrestling a SmackDown pay-per-view. They always use the keywords of SmackDown. So I think obviously it's either going to be one of two ways, that Dolph wins the title or he obviously loses, but I don't think he'll actually retire. It's just one of those, those John Cena retirements where you go away for like a couple weeks and you come back. So then we go backstage, and Bray is still in the crate, and he's mumbling stuff, and he's sitting in his rocking chair, and it just fades to black. And I don't know, I'm kind of just getting played out with these backstage segments. This Bray Wyatt Randy Orton feud just really hasn't been what I thought it would be. It reminds me a lot of Edge's feud with Kane, when Edge was a good guy, and I believe it was for the title. They were feuding for the World Heavyweight title. And he was kidnapping Paul Bearer and locking him in the freezer and all that stuff. And I think that was actually the last time we seen Paul Bearer on TV, was when he got locked in that freezer. I don't know, it's just kind of, it reminds me a lot of that. I'm not really too impressed with this feud. I'm kind of ready for it to be done. And with John Cena and Dean Ambrose both taking time off after No Mercy, I could very easily see Randy Orton being slotted in with a AJ Styles feud. And I know everybody's probably waiting for that spot where he goes for the phenomenal forearm and gets hit with an RKO. I mean, that's just like a spot waiting to happen. So then we go back to the ring, and it's Jordan versus Jey Uso. Morrow said that that the Usos are looking to treat their opponents like rappers treat their enemies on diss tracks. I look forward to these little ridiculous comments every week by Morrow. I mean, they're pretty funny. He says one later on, I'll get to it. So Jordan goes for a German suplex, and Jey tries to reverse it, but Jordan just sits down and gets the 3 count. Afterwards, the Usos attack Gable on the outside, and then attempt their finisher on Jordan in the ring, but Slater and Rhino come out to stop them. And did anybody notice when Slater came out that the side apron said, "I got kids"? I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, Jason Jordan picked up the victory, and yeah, Morrow's comment was hilarious. It was an okay match, kind of boring. It was one of like 3 boring matches this week, but I could see that they're just trying to keep American Alpha relevant. I wish that they would do a few squash matches with them so they can really showcase themselves before they start getting in feuds with actual tag teams. But, I'm sure eventually these guys are going to be the face of the SmackDown Tag Team division or just the WWE division whenever Vince gets bored of the brand split. So then we go backstage yet again, and Bray is still in the crate, and he's singing a song about praying or something. He says he's happy to see you, and I'm glad you came back, Sister Abigail. He says he's ready to come home, and he extends his hand. Well, then they go back to the camera outside of the box, and Randy is shown opening the sliding door with only a chair there. And he freaks out, picks up the chair, and throws it. And, yeah, I told you a second ago about how I feel about this feud. It's not the worst feud, but it's certainly, I'm just sick of seeing 7 backstage segments with them every week now. And I'm ready for it to move on. So we go on to Swagger versus Baron Corbin. And during the entrance, Kurt Hawkins' promo is shown, and which I thought was kind of funny. Maybe they're setting up for a match between Kurt Hawkins and Baron Corbin or whatever. I don't know what they're doing with them. And so Kurt has these little sayings, and they're like the Chuck Norris sayings. And I've heard a lot of people rip on them, but I think they're kind of funny. I like his facial expressions. He says, when Kurt Hawkins goes swimming, sharks beach themselves. And then he's doing one where he's doing push-ups. And every time he comes back up, he says, Amelia Earhart got lost looking for Kurt Hawkins. And he says, SmackDown, I have an announcement. At No Mercy, I will be making my in-ring debut. Well, then we go back to the match. Corbin comes out, and during the match, Morrow said, like I said earlier, I was going to come back to another Morrow statement. He said, Jack Swagger would like to treat Corbin the way his alma mater, Oklahoma, treated TCU over the weekend. And JBL says, easy, you're talking about a Texas team. You know nothing about football. You're from Canada. Which JBL does have a point. Nothing against Canadians, but certainly the Canadian Football League is nothing compared to the NFL. But perhaps it's not as scandalous or scripted, I guess, as the NFL either. But that's a whole different argument and conversation. So Swagger locks in the Patriot lock, and after Corbin was trying to reach for the ropes continuously in a tapping manner, the ref calls for the bell and said that Corbin was tapping. Well, Corbin gets mad about this, and he tries to flip over the first step, and it fails. So I think that just made him angrier, and he just went around the whole ring and just started flipping tables, the stairs, and flipped over a part of the announce table. I don't know. I guess it's something for them to do. Corbin should have stayed down in NXT longer. Maybe held the title for a little bit. I think that would have been something that would have been beneficial for him to do. I think that after Joe's feud with Balor, that Corbin should have won the title from Joe. Joe should have went to the main roster, and then Corbin could have lost the belt to Nakamura. And that's not saying that I didn't love the Nakamura Samoa Joe match at the last TakeOver, because it was so good. But, I don't know. I'm just free ball thinking might not be really even something that I believe in when it comes to Corbin holding the title, but I definitely think that he should have stayed in NXT for maybe another 6 months to a year. So, we go to the final main event portion of our SmackDown Live, and it's the AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, John Cena segment. Styles comes out first and says the champ is here. He said at SummerSlam he beat Cena, and at Backlash he beat Dean. And this coming Sunday at No Mercy, he will be both and become... Well, then Ambrose's music hits, and he comes out and says he will become the clown that runs the town. Ambrose said he's mad because he had him pinned for 27 seconds, and Cena cost him the match. Well, then Cena's music hits, And he comes down to the ring, and before he can say anything, Styles gets in his face and just tells him to shut up, shut up, shut up. Before you say anything, just shut up, because everyone knows what you're going to say. How dare you compare yourself to a legend like Flair? No matter how many titles you win, you'll never be in the same conversation as Flair. And he told him not to worry about Flair. Don't worry about chasing titles. Worry about AJ Styles. He said Cena chases history, and he makes history. Well, then Cena starts to say something back, but Ambrose gets in front and stops him. He says he's the master of the political spin. He's the only one in this match. He's only in this match because he's the master politician. And all these comments are like basically true. It's like breaking kayfabe or whatever. He says Cena has no respect for Ambrose because he didn't kiss his butt. He said it'll be Dean Ambrose because he's real, and you keep being the guy who plays John Cena. Well, Cena finally says something, and it was just this. He said, talk is cheap. And he tackles him and throws Styles out of the ring and AA's Ambrose. He holds up the title to celebrate, but Styles attacks him and lays him out with a phenomenal forearm. Styles picks up the strap and his music hits. And I scrolled on the thing and seen there was still like 2 minutes left, so I knew that there was more that was going to happen. Because I was like, wow, AJ Styles is standing tall at the end of SmackDown. There's no way he can lose his title to one of the guys that are leaving for a little bit after the pay-per-view on Sunday. But nope, that wasn't the case. While he's talking trash on the outside, Ambrose hits him from behind, lays him out with the dirty deeds on the ramp. And SmackDown ends with Styles and Cena laid out in their respective areas and Ambrose standing tall with the title. This was another B show, and by B I mean that's the rating I'm going to give it, just like on Raw. SmackDown's consistently good. This week, the promo work in the main, I guess it wasn't even main event, just the main event segment. It was so good between those three guys. Three of the best mic workers in the game, all feuding with each other. So much fun. And yeah, so that wraps up our SmackDown portion. And we will be moving on to NXT. NXT opens up with a video promoting the Dusty Classic, and I can't believe it's been a full year since we lost the American Dream. And I mean, it's been, I don't know if it was before or after that Roddy Piper passed away. I think it was before. I was in Tennessee with my family, and I think my mom told me about it, or I don't know how I seen it, but Roddy Piper's a top 5 wrestler all time for me. Broke my heart. And just to lose both of those legends, it's sad, especially since right now I'm watching 1996 WCW, 1996, 1997, 98, stuff like that, WCW Nitros and pay-per-views, and getting to see Roddy Piper come out pretty much every week and wrestle just reminds me how great of a guy he was, and so good on the mic, and especially when he was paired up with Flair, they were just so fun to watch. And just to hear Dusty Rhodes on commentary, yeah, and just what he meant to NXT. So moving on, we have our first match of the Dusty Rhodes Classic, and it's between the Bollywood Boys and the Authors of Pain. I've told people before I didn't care about the Bollywood Boys in the CWC tournament. Both of their matches were extremely boring, and if there was any kind of excitement, it didn't come from their end. So I didn't really care about them, but I did like the line that they played during their interview at the beginning, where they said, they did the famous line where whether you like it or whether you don't, it's the best you have, or something like that. I don't mean to butcher it. I didn't make a note of it, but I did make a note that they said it. But it was from the end of the 1992 Royal Rumble, where backstage Mean Gene was interviewing Ric Flair, Bobby Heenan, and Mr. Perfect, and they made that line famous. So during the match, you hear an interesting chant, and it quickly faded, but it says, they're chanting out, "Please don't die," to the Bollywood Boys, and I thought that was pretty funny. So it was a short match, and the Authors of Pain put them away with their finisher, which is called The Last Chapter, and I think they actually just made that name. And it's very suitable, and it makes sense for them. I mean, it was a squash match, that's all it is. I don't know how far the Authors of Pain are going to go in this tournament. I think if they do lose, and they probably, I mean, I don't see them winning it. My pick right now is going to be Gargano and Ciampa. I think that they specifically did that promo about their order of stuff that they wanted to do. And beating the Revival was one, which they're going to beat them in this tournament. And I think after they win this tournament, they're going to get a number one contender shot. And they're going to beat the Revival for the titles at the next TakeOver. But I think they'll quickly lose the titles after that to... I think it's one or the other. It's going to be... Either they lose the titles right away to Authors of Pain, or the Authors of Pain are just doing this stuff in NXT for a little bit, and they're just going to go to the main roster, which would be nice for them to go to the main roster. Maybe they could be the ones that dethrone the New Day. And I would like it to be Revival, but I think the Revival is much more needed in SmackDown than they are on Raw. But either way, as long as the Revival debut in the main roster, I'm cool with that. So next up, we have a teaser for Dan Mather, and this guy has like steroid acne all over him, and it makes you question the WWE's wellness policy. So yeah, they show a preview for him, and the next match we have is Rich Swann versus Patrick Clark. Patrick Clark came out with this interesting Prince-looking gimmick, and all I could think about is the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea from his WCW days, and like the dark days of WCW when they changed their logo, and Vince Russo took over and gave everybody a stupid gimmick, like Alex Riley turned into Berlin, and I don't know what other ones, I can't. But yeah, it was just, oh god, it was awful. Reminds me a lot of how TNA is. And it makes me think that maybe Patrick Clark might be that first gay wrestler that they talked about possibly doing. But I don't know, just kind of the way it came off. Maybe it's just him more acting like Prince, who kind of comes off a little bit more flamboyant. That could just be the case. But I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but at the very beginning of Patrick Clark's music, it reminded me of Jake the Snake. And I just I did one of those things where I'm kind of like looking away from the TV, and then I hear it, and I like immediately look over back at the TV, and I was like, oh crap, that sounded like Jake the Snake. And, but yeah. So, during this match, Patrick Clark, he nails this massive spine buster. I mean, yeah, it looked awesome. And very believable if Rich Swann actually got hurt. So, yeah, Rich Swann ends up winning with a cartwheel moonsault, which I hope they eventually name the Swan Salt, or I'm just going to call it that until they actually give it a proper name. And just hearing Rich Swann's music at the beginning, or I'm sorry, at the end, it made me think that, I think CFO $, I think that's how you say the name, I don't know. They're great at these NXT theme songs and some of the main roster guys. I'm just convinced that anymore they've seen the magic that they got from Finn Balor and Bayley, and now with Nakamura and Bobby Roode and Rich Swann. Like, I think they're just making songs now to where fans can sing along with them, whether it's just the lyrics or the instrumentals. But yeah, I'm loving it, loving the music. I download all of the songs and just drive around sometimes and just listen to their theme music. So next up, we have Peyton Royce with Billie Kay against Danielle Camella. I'm not really impressed by any of the women in the NXT right now, not named Asuka or Ember Moon. Some of them are cute, but yeah. And I was hoping that Sanity would be another women's wrestler, but it's not. We'll get to that later when the news and rumors. So Peyton wins this with a Perfect Plex meh match. It was the snoozer of this episode. Yeah. I don't know. I really hope that they beef up the women's division. I know that it got gutted out, but I would really like to see at least another one or two women really be pushed up to where they can look well. I think that Nia Jax should have stayed in NXT for at least another 4 or 5 months. You don't really see her on Raw anymore, and if she is, she does squash matches. They really don't need her right now on Raw. They could easily move someone else into that role to maybe feud with Bayley, or however they're going to do it when this all gets worked out. I don't know. So, we move on, and we have Perfectly Glorious being interviewed backstage. And Rude cuts off Ty Dillinger, and he says this.
Ty Dillinger takes his next big step by getting in the ring and teaming with yours truly.
Okay. Look, Dusty meant the world to me, and there's no better way I feel I can honor him than by winning the... Are you okay?
Shh. Can you see it?
See what?
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Can you feel how glorious it's gonna be when we are victorious? Can you?
Oh.
She asked them if they're worried about Sanity, which I said I was going to get back to that. Sanity, who I thought was going to be a solo or a women's wrestler, is in fact a tag team. And yeah, I don't know. I was going to save this for a little bit later when I go over the bracket, but I got a glimpse of Sanity, and I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen them. It's basically going to be a faction, and if you're familiar with TNA, think of Decay. WWE doing another... It's funny, anything that they ever steal from TNA, it's always like TNA's like bad stuff. They never take like their good ideas. They always take their bad ideas. I'm not really too excited about Sanity now. I really hope that something happens to where Rude and Ty Dillinger win this match, because I know eventually this is setting up for a feud. So going back to the interview, they ask, she asks him if they're worried about Sanity, and Rude said the Glorious 10 is the team to beat. Is the team to beat, not the 10, the team. And Ty has a lot to prove to him. Ty said they were the team to beat, but then before he can finish, Rude grabs him and says they have to get ready for next week. Well, next up we have the debut of Dan Matha versus, well, against nobody. Matha comes out to this, like, I put it as his music is garbage, but we'll find out now why his music was just like whatever, and the guy was just whatever, because he was nothing more than Joe's another opponent that he's going to wreak havoc through NXT on. So he comes out and he headbutts Dan Matha, and he beats the living crap out of him. And I'm so glad that this happened. It's so cool. I don't remember there ever being a period in wrestling, unless it happened in NXT or something that I'm sorry, not NXT, in TNA or something else. I don't ever remember WCW, WWE, any of those doing a thing where they hype a new wrestler and then he just comes out and gets laid out before his match. Well, it's pretty cool that it happened, and I'm glad it happened with Joe, because Joe is just wreaking havoc, and I think that's what they're probably going to try to do with Braun Strowman over on Raw. I think that they might just have him run roughshod over the division, on the entire roster. So this is what Joe says next.
Talk! Tick! Talk! Who will be the next to get their head rocked?
Well, then he comes out and he asks Regal how many more lives will suffer before he gives him what he wants. He tells him, bring me Nakamura or hand me my championship. Well, then we go backstage, and Rich Swann and No Way Jose are interviewed. They're asked why they wanted to be together in a tag team, and they both explain why, and then they start singing their own songs. So they're like, can you handle this? Can you handle this? No way, Jose. No way, Jose. I don't know. Be a very entertaining tag team. They're definitely going to be dancing a lot. Yeah. So then a teaser for Sanity is shown, and we go back to the ring with Cien Almos and Cedric Alexander versus the Revival for our second match of the Dusty Classic. I love Cedric Alexander. Like I've said before, the guy's going to be a star one day and not just in the Cruiserweight division. He's got charisma. I don't really know too much about his mic skills. I've only seen, outside of WWE, I've seen him when he was back in ROH, and I was very entertained by him. That little choker around his neck, I don't know how that thing doesn't hurt him throughout the match. And I'm always afraid it would get caught on something. So Cien's much better than he has been since his debut. He doesn't wear that fedora or those Mario Brother overalls. During the match, Cien does this fake rope jump, and he just sits in between the ropes, and Cedric flies over him onto the Revival on the outside. It's a pretty cool spot. Cedric at the match gets the hot tag and hits a springboard enziguri, which was very cool. Well, the Revival win with the Shatter Machine, and after I saw that there was a minute left, I was like, well, something's up here. Well, as soon as I started thinking that, I looked up and I seen Cien patting Cedric on the back, and I knew something was up. Well, turns out Cien does a heel turn. He turns his back on Cedric Alexander, and it's definitely something cool, and it's something that, other than the Cruiserweight division, it'll give Cedric Alexander a name for himself to have a feud like this. Looking forward to the matches between these two gentlemen. I'm sure the first match will probably take place in the upcoming weeks of NXT. Maybe they'll tease us. Maybe it'll just be a main event. And if they do tease us, it'll be for the next NXT pay-per-view. And I can't help but think that Cien is probably going to be the next Del Rio. And when I say that, I mean the next Latin heel that they were trying to get Del Rio to be. And it just was, for so many reasons, a failed experiment. And that does it for NXT. Moving on to news and rumors. Apparently, first off, if Cody Rhodes was staying around in WWE, he was going to be playing Cody Rhodes and Stardust, and one of the characters would be on Raw and the other one would be on SmackDown. And I don't know Cody Rhodes personally. I don't know what's in his head, but I would have definitely stuck around for this if I would have known ahead of time if I was him. I think it would have been something cool, and who knows, maybe he would have gotten a huge push in the end out of it. But you know what? He's doing his own thing in the indies. He's getting his feet wet in a little bit of everything. And I'm happy for him. I hope he checks off everything on that list that he put on Twitter a few months back. And, yeah. Also, the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic bracket was revealed. And I won't go too much into it. I know I probably said I was going to, but I just wanted to talk about a few teams I'm really excited about seeing. One is Glorious 10. Another is Kota Ibushi and Hideo Itami. And the Revival, of course. But the other team was Austin Aries' team with his mystery partner, who, if you don't want to know who it is, fast forward about 10 seconds, and it is Roderick Strong. And I'm pretty excited about that. Really look forward to the bracket. Still can't believe it's been a year since we lost Dusty. Yeah. Last year's was extremely fun to watch, and we got a great feud that almost lasted it was like an 8-month feud between Samoa Joe and Finn Balor. So I'm excited to see what they do this year with the tournament. As I've said before, my pick is Gargano and Ciampa, so I'm going to stand by that. And yeah. So also, I want to give a congratulations to Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella, who are expecting their first kid. I know if any of you guys that follow the Total Bellas, Total Divas, now there's the Total Bellas, but I know that they were both wanting kids way before Daniel Bryan had to be forced into retirement, and I couldn't be happier for him. Next on our news is apparently there was a Canadian politician Matthew Dubé, who gave a shout out to WWE Universal Champion Kevin Owens on the floor of the Canadian House of Commons. And I thought that was pretty cool. I guess Kevin Owens tweeted him back something like, I heard someone had my name in their mouth or something like that. I don't know. I thought, Kevin Owens, he's always entertaining. Yeah, so before we go, I just want to give my predictions for No Mercy. And they are as follows. First match is our kickoff show match between Baron Corbin and Jack Swagger. I think Baron Corbin wins this by pinfall. He lost by submission, I'm doing the quotations, on SmackDown, which can only mean the exact opposite. Jack Swagger's only there to build up Baron Corbin for an eventual, feud with somebody higher up. Kurt Hawkins is going to make his debut. He's obviously going to win that match. Nikki Bella faces Carmella. Nikki Bella has been beaten up ever since this feud's taken place. I'm going to pick Nikki Bella to win over Carmella via pinfall. Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. This one's a little tough one. I think that Randy Orton wins, but Bray Wyatt's been beaten down so much lately that I can't help but think that maybe a certain Luke Harper makes his return on Sunday and helps Bray pick up a cheap win. So I'm going to have Bray Wyatt winning by outside interference on Luke Harper. Next up is our tag team championship of Heath Slater and Rhino versus the Usos. I'm going to pick the Usos to win this. I think that they're doing their best work in a few years as heels. I think that they're going to have Heath Slater and Rhino chase after him after this, but eventually opening up with a feud between American Alpha and the Usos for the titles. So I have the Usos winning with their Tequila Sunrise top rope move, whatever they do. But yeah, I think that they'll win by submission over Heath Slater. Next up is our Women's Championship. Look, Lynch took the pinfall on SmackDown by Bliss. So I have Lynch winning with the by submission. And yeah. Next up is career versus title, Miz versus Dolph Ziggler. This one I've really been thinking hard on, but I think I'm just going to go with my gut and say that Dolph Ziggler wins this. Miz has had the title for quite a long time. He's continuing to be entertaining, but I think Dolph picks up the win here via super kick pinfall. And last up, we have our main event, triple threat, no rules, WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And it's between AJ Styles versus John Cena versus Dean Ambrose. And I am going to pick AJ Styles to retain. I think Dean Ambrose picks up the pinfall, eats the pen, and yeah, AJ Styles wins with a phenomenal forearm. And that about does it for our first ever episode of PWO Pro Wrestling Opinion Podcast. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at Pro Wrestling Opinions, at PDub Opinions, so that's PDUB Opinions. Email us with any questions or comments or just anything. If you want to just chit chat, email us at prowrestleopinion@gmail.com. That's prowrestleopinion@gmail.com. And we can't wait to see you guys next week, so take care. Have a good week.